Okay, so when you hear the name Sally Ride, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Right, the first American woman in space. It's a headline that's basically etched into history. But her full story, the one that really defines her legacy, well, that is so much more than just one incredible flight. In fact, the story we're going to tell today doesn't even start on a launch pad. It actually begins decades later, with a tragedy, an investigation, and a single, kind of unassuming object from the Smithsonian's collection, an ID badge.
Take a look. This is her ID badge for the Columbia Accident Investigation Board, or CAIB for short. This was the official team NASA put together, and they had the heartbreaking, monumental job of figuring out why the shuttle Columbia broke apart during re-entry back in 2003.
Now, for Sally Ride, this investigation was deeply personal. The loss of Columbia was, as she put it, a disturbing echo of the Challenger disaster, another tragedy she'd been called in to investigate almost 20 years earlier.
And that right there brings us to the big question, the reason we're telling this story. Out of all the astronauts, all the brilliant scientists and engineers in the world, why was Sally Ride the only person NASA asked to be on the investigation boards for both shuttle disasters?
To get that answer, we've got to rewind. Because to understand the investigator, you first have to understand the brilliant, trailblazing scientist who became an American icon.
I mean, her rise was just incredible. She got a double major from Stanford in physics and English, then a master's, and then a Ph.D. in physics. In 1978, she was picked from a pool of over 8,000 people to join NASA. And just 5 years later, boom, she makes history.
But this is where things get really telling. While the media was asking her, just absurd questions like, will spaceflight affect your reproductive organs, or how much makeup are you taking? Her reality was something else entirely. She was a Ph.D. physicist, a mission specialist who was literally operating the shuttle's robotic arm. And she'd already been the first female Capcom. That's the single voice connecting mission control to the crew in orbit. A hugely critical job.
But here's something you have to remember. She wasn't alone in breaking down these walls. And that brings us to a really important number. 6.
Yeah, Sally was the first of her group to actually go to space, but she was part of this incredible first class of 6 American women astronauts. We're talking brilliant scientists and doctors, people like Judith Resnick and Catherine Sullivan, who all trained together, supported each other, and navigated what was, let's be honest, a completely male-dominated world.
And it was that unique mix of serious scientific expertise, her proven calm under immense pressure, and just this unwavering integrity that really made her stand out. It's why NASA turned to her, and her alone, during its absolute darkest hours. In a way, she became the conscience of the space program.
So, back to our question. Why her? Because when everything was on the line, when NASA had to get to the truth of its greatest failures, her unique combination of skills and character made her the only person for the job.
Think about it. She was the only person to serve on both the Rogers Commission for the Challenger disaster in '86 and the Columbia Board in 2003. NASA didn't just trust her technical mind, they trusted her to be fearless, to find the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it was.
Now, you'd think that having to confront these massive tragedies twice, seeing the flaws in the system up close, you'd think that would make someone cynical. But for Sally Ride, it did the exact opposite. It ignited a brand new mission in her, inspiring the next generation to build it all back, but better.
After leaving NASA, she charted this whole new course. First, she wrote the famous Ride Report, which was this incredible strategic plan for NASA's future. Then she went back to her roots in academia, teaching physics. And finally, in 2001, she and her life partner, Dr. Tam O'Shaughnessy, co-founded Sally Ride Science, a company dedicated to making science cool and accessible for all students, especially girls.
And look at the real-world impact here. This wasn't some little side project. We're talking millions of books sold, more than 100 science festivals, and this amazing program called EarthCam, which let middle schoolers direct a camera on the space station to take their own pictures of Earth. Her work truly inspired a whole new generation.
So you see, when we talk about Sally Ride's true legacy, it wasn't just built up there in orbit. It was built right here on the ground, and its impact reached way beyond the final frontier.
She was so much more than an astronaut. She was a brilliant physicist. She was the investigator NASA trusted in its worst moments, a passionate educator and author, and, as we learned after she passed away, an icon as the first acknowledged LGBTQ+ astronaut.
In the end, Sally Ride didn't just break the glass ceiling. She reached back through it and built a ladder for everyone else who wanted to follow. She didn't just reach for the stars, she taught others how to. The path is clear, so the only question left for us is, what will their legacy be?